When the Federal Reserve meets later this week, it's widely expected that they will once again look to push interest rates higher. In this morning's U.S. Bank Economic 360, U.S. Bank's Senior Vice President Mike Denneman joins us to talk about what this means for the economy. He is with Business Courier publisher Jamie Smith in the studio. Gentlemen.
Thanks, Peg. Thanks for being here again, Mike.
Good morning.
So a big meeting this week.
Big meeting coming up. The Fed meeting on both Tuesday and Wednesday. As Peg mentioned, widely expected that they are going to bump interest rates higher. So again, this is their so-called Fed funds rate, which they use as a guide for interest rates in general. Typically what the Fed does, the markets will follow suit. So the expectation is that they will raise rates by 1/4%. So if they do follow through with that, that would be their third such move so far this year. They did a 1/4 point back in March and then another 1/4 point in June. And if they do, again, widely expected, but their new range would be in between 2% and 2.25%. So granted, not a particularly high rate, but when we recall that as recently as just a couple years ago, that rate was essentially zero, right, we can see that their steady incremental moves are starting to add up.
Okay. So what do you think this means for the economy? Crystal ball time, Mike.
Right. Well, important to remember why they're doing it. So, the Fed uses higher rates as a tool to keep a growing economy from growing too quickly. So, growth is good, of course. We want the economy to be expanding. But if an economy expands too quickly, then we can get some negative side effects. Right. Inflation, certainly, at the extreme, another bubble could form. And so we want to avoid those things. And so the fact that the Fed is pushing rates higher tells us a couple of things. First, that the economy is doing very well, but that also there's some concern that it might be going a little bit too quickly. So by systematically bumping rates higher by a small amount each time, in theory, this allows them to have the economy continue to expand, but also kind of keep it in control.
Right. So what do you think the outlook after this week is? And obviously we've seen three, well, most likely we'll have seen three increases.
Yep.
Will that continue in the fourth quarter?
Well, we'll have to wait and see. So we've talked in the past about how this whole process works best if the Fed is able to kind of communicate what their thinking is ahead of time. Okay. We've all seen in the past where the Fed has surprised the market either with the timing or the magnitude of the move, and we know that the market hates surprises. So when the Fed throws a curveball, things get a little ugly. So it works best if the Fed can kind of telegraph to everyone what their thinking is. So we're obviously reading the tea leaves to assume that they're going to make a move on Wednesday. If we read the tea leaves even further, they're seeming to suggest strongly that December might be another rate hike. But of course, there's no guarantee. Right. And that's a ways out yet. So I think the market is using as its base case, as its base assumption, that we're going to get the move on Wednesday and then another in December. But we'll have to wait and see. There's a lot of time between now and then. And so,
well, I guess our guarantee is that you and U.S. Bank are going to be here to give us that what happens in
we'll keep you posted
next week, and then again what happens in December.
Absolutely.
All right, Mike. Thanks so much.